On this episode of Nugget Project, it's time to get this engine out of the car. G'day guys, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome, and please subscribe and do all the YouTube things. It helps me out. So we're back with the AW11, a rusty AW11, and it is time to get the engine and gearbox out this thing. So I have absolutely no idea if this engine works. We don't know. Like, as far as the last owner and I can tell, it hasn't been running over 20 years. So there's that. Hopefully she's okay, because I would love to have a little Ripper 4AGE in the back of this car for a while, at least just to experience that engine. I've never owned one, and it would be nice to, to have that in the car. If you missed out, it does have an automatic gearbox. Gross. So we need to get that box out, get it off the engine, and just throw it into the ocean, because they are horrible. And we'll source a manual transmission, but that also means flywheel, drive shafts, gear cables, gear shifter, and clutch pedal. There's quite a lot to this, and I will slowly chip away at finding all those pieces. Once again, if you're part of the MR2 community and you do have any of those parts, please hit me up, as I would love to start collecting this stuff as soon as I can, as soon as money allows, so that'd be great. Anyway, hopefully I've got my good mate Brad coming over today. He's gonna give me a hand, but this car is a little different than all my other cars I've owned, because the engine has to come out the bottom. Obviously it's a very small little opening for the engine out the top, so we will have to disconnect all the auxiliary crap. A lot of the stuff is already disconnected from when the last owner had it. He was obviously sort of working his way towards getting the engine out, but never quite got there. So yeah, we'll disconnect the rest of the stuff up top, and then get underneath, pop those drive shafts out, and I'm hoping then it's just a few cables, engine mounts, and then we can drop it on the floor. We'll jack the entire car up. I do have some big stands and then some little-ish stands. I'll put the big ones onto the back, small ones on the front, get the car as high as we can, and hopefully drag the engine out. I do have a wheelie trolley, but I think the wheelie trolley will bring the engine too high and it will hit the chassis, so we might just have to put it down on a piece of wood and drag it out that way. Anyway, I'm gonna get started with ripping the top of this engine apart, and then hopefully Brad will be here soon and we can get going with getting the rest of this engine out. Let's do it. Oh man, I wish this was smell-o-vision, because honestly, I just undid the fuel lines and it stinks. There's no corrosion on the fuel lines, which is great news, but 20-year-old petrol stinks. It is not a good smell. Anyway, it's all coming apart pretty good. It's all very Toyota, which is great, because it's all stuff I understand. Just a few, I was like, why is the throttle cable there? Why is it pulling the wrong way? And then I realized it's the kickdown cable for the automatic. I don't do automatics, so that confused me why there was another cable there, but then I do work for Street Machine and they're all about the automatics for some reason, so I now am aware of kickdown cables. So that's what that disgusting thing is. Anyway, I can go in the bin with the transmission. Most of the radiator pipes and stuff are gross, like they're done. I did find a kit on Amazon from this company, I can't remember the something race, some generic racing name, but they do an entire hose kit for this engine. So all the, like everything, heater hoses, all the radiator hoses, everything, and it wasn't that expensive. It was like 150 bucks, so I'm definitely going to get that. They even do them in funky colors like red or something, so ooh, maybe we'll do that. Anyway, but I'm going to replace pretty much every hose in this before I put it back together. There's no point doing all this, putting the engine back in, and then finding there's a leaky hose or a leaky seal or gasket. If we're going to take this out and do it, let's do it properly. Anyway, let's keep on keeping on. Puts me down again. I don't need no silver. I don't need no gold. I got my baby's touch and I can feel it in my soul. Oh, how she loves me. Picks me up and takes me high. Oh, how she loves me. Lifts me right into the sky. That's cool. That's the first time I've used this tool, and that is unreal. How good is that for popping out ball joints? 30 bucks off eBay. So good. Crusty. Okay, so we are kind of ready to pull the engine out. Brad's rocked up. It's kind of serendipitous too, because the last time we saw Brad, well, not last time we saw him, but like the first time we saw him was episode 3 when we pulled the engine out of the nut. Now it's like, it's episode 3 of the MR2, pulling the engine out of the MR2. There you go.
I like pulling engines.
He likes pulling engine. I think everything is disconnected. I had to pull the sort of drive shafts. One of them was disconnected because Theo, who owned it, as I said, the gearbox won't go into neutral or whatever, so he had to pull the drive shaft so we could move it around. Can't get the drive shafts out of the hubs. Don't know what the deal is with that. I think I just need to whale on them. I'll find out a bit more information before I do whale on them. That's pretty much my plan. Everything in the engine bay is disconnected. Drive shafts are out. Nothing's connected except the wiring loom here that goes into the engine bay for the ECU. Doesn't really want to poke through, so I think I'm going to have to lower the engine down a bit and then we'll feed it through. Just if the wiring loom is a bit stiff because of its age. So usually when you get older things get floppier, but this one's got the stiffer, so there you go. Alright, well we'll hook the crane up to it, we'll lower it down, undo the front and back engine mount first because you kind of got to get into the car to do that, and then we'll do the left and right because you can do them from the wheel arches, so that means no one's under the engine while it's hovering. We'll set up a time lapse and give this a crack. So obviously this vent was purely put here so I could take engine mounts out. No, but very handy. And with much grunting and farting, the engine is down the ground. So it's out. It wasn't too bad, it's just, never done it before. It's a bit of a fiddle. Everything catches on everything, but it's out. Thanks, Brad.
No worries.
So now we need to get, obviously, we need to drag the engine out, but we can't do that because the chassis is in the way. So we will have to lift the chassis up, which you probably just do with the engine crane, and then we can move those stands up further and try and get this thing out. The joys. Okay, so obviously the car is on very high stands. Unfortunately, I've only got 2 of the big ones here, the other 2 at my dad's house, so I've got 4 little ones under the front just for security. I didn't film that, unfortunately the GoPro battery died, but basically, we just put a strap around the control arms, put it on the engine crane, and then just Brad lifted the back up, and then we just notched the stands up and up and up. Now it looks like we've just got enough clearance to drag the engine out. I'd love to have it on a trolley, but that would gain another, 15, 20 mil, which means we'd have to get the car up even higher, which I don't want to do. I know it doesn't have anything in it. It's still a car. I don't really want it falling. So I do have my winch point down the ground for winching the car in and out. So as Brad suggested, we'll get the winch on that and we'll drag the engine out the back, and then we'll lower the car down a bit so it's on a little more of a sturdy level. And good to go. What a mission, man. I would have had the engine out the Hyundai in I think I can do it in about an hour and 15 now. This is a lot more work. You get that in the big jobs. All right, let's drag this engine out, see how we go. Okay, engine is out. There she is, looking pretty dirty. No idea if it works or not. We'll find that out soon. But at least now I can bring the engine crane over and we can lift it up and I can separate the box and put it on the engine stand. We'll lower this car down because probably doesn't look it in the video, but it's very high and I don't like it. It makes me nervous. So we'll lower it back down so it's more level, and yeah, we can start playing with the engines. Thanks, Brad. Couldn't have done that without you, man. We used our little winch here for my anchor point and winched the winched it out. Worked really well. Cool beans. Okay, our 4AG is out the car and on the engine stand, and isn't she gross and beautiful? That disgusting thing down there is going to go in the bin. I got it half off the engine and then realised I hadn't taken the flex plate off the torque converter. And I was like, I don't know why it's not separating. And then I remembered automatic things. So yeah, got in underneath and undid all those bolts, which is a lot of them. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So unnecessary. I think Barras have 4. Anyway, so that's that, but that is that. And that's amazing. So she's pretty filthy. Gonna need a bit of work. I've got to go get some better bolts. I've got just a junk load of spacers on here because the bolts are too long. So I'll go to the bolt shop and get some proper ones for that. Yep, she's looking pretty sad, but I think the next step is to tear her down, see what she's like inside. And she's pretty gross. Look at this. Yep, that's not ideal. I don't know if that's a bit of oil. That's pretty creamy. We may have a head gasket gone on this. So if the head gasket is leaking, the oil looks fine. It's dirty, but it's fine. It doesn't look like there's coolant mixed in with that. So I'd say that if the gasket's gone, it is just mixing some oil in with the coolant, which happens. And apparently these head gaskets did go. Weren't the greatest things in the world, but luckily we have modern technology with metal layer head gaskets and stuff like that. So maybe we'll, I think I'm just going to strip this thing down. I don't think there's much point trying to clean it up and put it back together and put it back in the car because there's a bitch to get in and out. So if I'm going to do it, let's do it properly. So I say strip it down, take the head off, check it all out, see what the gasket looks like. We'll flip it over, have a look at the bearings in the bottom, see what the main and the big end bearings look like, and we'll check out the bore. And if it needs more, we'll just keep going until it's shiny, and hopefully nothing in there is scored or bent or overly damaged. I did notice didn't look like there was any metal coming out in the oil, so that's great. Yeah, old car things, eh?
Been at it already, had my tarot read. Things are looking up for me, that's what my tarot said. Been pumping out pheromones and wearing red. Young Jerry Lolliver King, but they're not aware of it. $40 to show money.
Okay guys, well it's been a couple of days. We had to finish up the other day because Brad had to go home, I had to go and be a dad, all those sort of things. So we packed it up, but our engine is out and it has given me a couple of days to, after work, just have a quick poke around and have a look at the engine, and I have discovered a few things. So obviously the engine is very dirty and yeah, and as I showed you in that last bit, the water lines do look pretty oily. So I'm pretty confident the head gasket has gone at some point and it is mixing oil and water. These things happen. Reading up online, seems these head gaskets did have a tendency to go, and yeah, hopefully it hasn't cooked anything or done any damage. Time will tell when we pull it down. The other things I found is here. So this is the wiring loom that goes through into the boot and connects up to the ECU. And this connector here, which I'm not too sure what this goes to, I'm gonna have to look up some diagrams. As you'll see, is very melted, and there is at least one wire here, this brown wire, that is completely cooked, and it's cooked the connector, it's cooked that wire. So I'm gonna have to strip back the loom and find out what that goes to. It's obviously shorted out somewhere. I'm just praying it hasn't destroyed the ECU. So I might dig the ECU. I do know we have the ECU. It's in one of the boxes. Pull that ECU out, pop the cover off, and just have a look inside and make sure it all looks happy. and that it hasn't fried any of the circuits, because if it has, that's going to be a headache. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to have a look and see. I do know a couple of people who are very good at fixing up, like recapping Toyota ECUs. I had a guy do it in my Sora. So maybe that's an option if it does have issues. But anyway, so yes, this is not ideal. This is all sort of telling a story as to why this car was parked up in a field for 16 years. I'd say head gasket, it's obviously had this massive wiring issue, which has caused problems, no doubt, and possibly a little fire by the looks of it, although nothing's charred inside, so who knows. And then our gearbox that won't go to gear. So I feel it's probably an accumulation of all these problems, and they just went, you know what, 2 hard basket, parked it up, and eventually it sat there forever and then eventually sold off. So yeah, these are all problems we'll have to fix. So I'll strip all that back and find out what caused that. I'm hoping it was just, it had rubbed, like it might even be here where it was rubbing on a bracket and it's worn through the insulation and it's shorted on the chassis. Something like that. That'd be a best case scenario and very simple. And so I'll strip all that back. I'll have to buy a new connector because that one's fried, and I'll rewire that entire wire through that loom. Cool. The other thing I found also was some random wires underneath the car. So there's a couple of fairly chunky wires hanging down, frayed. I don't know. I'm going to have to figure out where the hell they came from and what they do, because they're a little bit of a mystery wire. So that's fun. And also, remember when we pulled out the heater box and I showed you those mangled pipes and stuff like that? I did speak to Theo, the last owner, and he said that, yeah, those pipes did get a bit mangled when he pulled them out. They are like I think a bronze or a copper pipe, and they are very soft and they're very easy to mangle. But he did say that the heater core was bypassed when he bought the car, so there was a loop pipe looping the hot water back into the system as opposed to going into the heater core. So I'd probably suggest that heater core is buggered and it was leaking in the car, and which could also mean why our passenger footwell has rusted through, because that was leaking into that footwell, made it wet, rusted through. More parts of the story, so we'll have to figure out a heater core. I'm hoping I've had a look online, I can only find that whole heater matrix as one unit, and they're expensive. So I'm hoping I can take the box and the heater core to a radiator specialist and see if they can actually find a core the same size or make one or something, and then make those pipes in the same orientation. So anyway, there we go, guys. Little bits of the puzzle. Obviously, we're not going to tear down the motor in this episode because it's already getting pretty long. So I think the next episode, yeah, we'll probably tear this guy down, or we'll get started on rust repairs. I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, check back in next episode where we'll either be starting to fix the rusty little bugger, or we'll tear this down and see what sort of condition it's in. Either way, check back. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it.